it's mutual support. Eagle Pass has always been a big sister city for the city of Del Rio, Texas. I'd like to update you first on a timeline, and then I'll have the mayor speak a couple of words. I'll proceed on. I am trying to give Customs and Border Protection some time, which is what this meeting is also about, to allude to that, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes. First and foremost, what began on Monday, we had about 2,200 migrants that were in detention here. I'm sorry, they were waiting to be detained underneath the City of Del Rio Bridge, which is behind me. What you see directly behind me is one of the entrances that Border Patrol uses to get in and out, to access those persons waiting. At that time, those numbers were already extremely high. It was completely unusual for the City of Del Rio, extraordinary times. 2 days later, at 11:30 in the morning, I did a video where I was again demanding at this point, any action from Department of Homeland Security and President Biden's administration to provide additional resources to the community. And when I say community, I'm referring to the Border Patrol because they're stretched so thin. At that time, we had about 3,600 individuals, and later that evening, we already had an upward of 5,600 individuals. So within 2 hours, we had an increase of about 2,000. Yesterday was Thursday. My days are all kind of combined. Yesterday in the morning, we started off with about 8,200 persons waiting in line to be detained. And at the end of the night, we had 10,503. I made a tweet on Twitter last night informing the country that 10,503 people is just short of 1/3 of the population of Del Rio. This morning, much to my, I don't know how to say it, but I'm not surprised, but it's just an awe. It's just something that's never before seen in this community, and I'm sure in Eagle Pass, we're about similar sized cities. We now have 12,500 persons as of 8 o'clock this morning underneath the bridge, which is 1/3 of the population. We now have 1/3 of the population of the city of Del Rio, Texas, in a confined space under the City of Del Rio International Bridge. So that said, I had thought that the alarm was set on Monday. This is setting the nuclear bomb alarm that this is no longer sustainable, acceptable. What's happening now in real time is the migrants are getting agitated. The Border Patrol can't keep up with feeding. During lunchtime, the facilities, the quality of life, the standard of living is all being stretched beyond its capabilities. We're also, because of the agitation and because of the frustration of the process, that means there is potential stampede, potential chaos, and also, of course, mass casualty potential with any kind of threat variable to those migrants. In addition to that, there is also the potential threat to our infrastructure, given the fact that this is an international bridge crossing, which is vital to our close sister cities, the City of Del Rio economy, Texas economy, and of course the American economy. The infrastructure is threatened every single second that the individuals are creating their shanty town underneath the bridge. It is also unbeknownst to the City of Del Rio exactly what the Department of Homeland Security is building on city property. The Department of Homeland Security has not contacted the City of Del Rio directly. There are no permits. There is no infrastructure understanding. There is no water source. There are no utilities. There is nothing that the city is aware of on what structures they're building. We don't know if they're permanent. We don't know if they're temporary. The City of Del Rio has no idea what is being built on its property. There has been no eminent domain, no declaration of any kind of urgency that the Department of Security can actually build this structure. And our city attorneys are trying to find a way to ensure that we're communicating with their legal department. But as of right now, we have had no communication on the infrastructures being built underneath the city-owned International Bridge. And this is why I have Mayor Salinas here from Eagle Pass to help you out there understand that this is unprecedented. This is beyond surreal. This is affecting everybody in this community. So with that, I'm going to open up the floor for comments from Mayor.
calls from my constituents every day asking me as a mayor, what is the city doing to protect me? And it feels that my hands are tied because the police department is responding to hundreds of calls of illegal immigrants going into properties. Our fire department is responding to calls of people being dehydrated, and our resources are stretched thin, and our city still needs to keeping the safety for all our constituents. So this is definitely an emergency. We're getting about 500 to 1,000 people a day. Yesterday, I had a meeting with Border Patrol officials, with CBP officials, and also the mayor of Piedras Negras, who is helping us a lot. Like now, not allowing people to stay in Piedras Negras. But this definitely, we need the help of the administration. Right now, the local officials, we're doing everything possible to maintain control of the city, just like I'm sure, like they're doing here in Del Rio. I know the Del Rio's, the judge, the mayor, they're doing everything possible to keep order. But it's just, it's a crisis. I mean, there's no other way to say it. So this is a plea. We ask the federal government to help us out. The administration, please help us out. We need the help. We're at the border, but don't forget about us. We're part of the United States of America. We're American citizens, please. If you're seeing this, I mean, this needs attention. And we need to protect our cities and the border. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor, for having me. We've had conversations with, we have a lot of support from our mayor in Piedras Negras. He tells me that there's a lot of buses in Piedras Negras, but he's rerouting them to other places. And not specifically to here, but just they're not staying in the city across in Piedras Negras. But don't get it wrong, we do have a huge problem in Eagle Pass, and we do need help and resources.
Mayor Lozano, talk about the
Mayor,
support you guys are
Mayor, can I have you come over just a little bit? Okay.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Mayor Salinas just talked about the support he's getting from the leadership in Piedras Negras. Talk about Acuna, what's the relationship, what is it?
So we do have a really great relationship with the city of Abuja. Unfortunately, it hasn't been as strong felt regarding the traffic that continues to go between behind me and into the city of Abuja. And I have been pushing on the mayor's office to get more aggressive and to really just stop the traffic. In other words, once you've crossed into the United States, don't cross back into Mexico. I don't know how strong of an effort that the administration over there is putting. Unfortunately, it's just not strong enough, as leadership in Piedras Negras has proven that they're doing that to divert the traffic. We are in communication. In fact, there's a meeting going on right now with Customs to discuss that movement right now.
Mayor, what would you tell Washington?
So what I would tell Washington is, again, I did post a video February 16th of 2021 during the snow bid that happened, that this is all foreshadowed, pre-warned our mayors. Here along the border, we talk to our sister city mayors. We're oftentimes excluded on the conversation of DHS policy regarding security measures and efforts here. And I feel like our sentiments are shared across the entire border, that we need to be part of that dialogue. Oftentimes, the administration focuses on urban centers, which is probably why they chose to go down to the valley or go down to El Paso. They excluded us from that conversation. They excluded us from that visit. And I feel like, the border is 2,000 miles plus long. Every community is going to have a different way to have to manage the mitigation of processing individuals that cross, not only legally, but also unlawfully.
Mayor Lozano, as you pointed out, this is city property underneath the International Bridge.
Yes.
And it was annexed by the city when the bridge was built.
Correct.
No one is going to know what's going on down there unless the media is allowed to have access to the encampment. When can you give us access to the encampment?
So I'm working with Judge Owens and ensuring that we are providing that accessibility to what's going on at the border. Of course, today there's a lot of different parameters that have changed, which is why I'm having it right here, right now, just so that everything we're on the same page, so I can coordinate with CBP, which is what's about to happen. But I assure you that the judge and I are ensuring that we are being transparent with the city of Del Rio, Val Verde County, Texas state residents, and the American public, and that we are being as transparent as we possibly can with local leadership. And I'm sure the same sentiments in Eagle Pass, Laredo, and further south, that we have a right to that accessibility. It is our city property, and we are demanding what structures are being built. Why is DHS just abandoning or allowing these individuals to just live in these conditions under city-owned property.
Mayor, you signed a declaration a little while ago. What was that declaration? What was your phone call with the
I'm going to discuss the declaration here in a moment. I'm just trying to ensure that Customs has enough time to discuss with what's going to happen here in a minute. Before I get to that, you probably see a lot of DPS that were just leaving just now. We are in the process of trying to find some control measures for the security and safety of this community and the City of Del Rio's assets, which is the International Bridge. I did speak with the governor just a few moments ago prior to this conference, and the governor is extremely supportive of our efforts locally to ensure that the safety and security of this community are at the forefront and are of utmost importance in his office. I want to thank the governor for providing DPS, state troopers, this entire time. After he declared his emergency on June 10th of this year, the security has been instrumental and appreciated not just by local leadership, but also by Border Patrol that needed that extra resource to help people wait in queue, if you will, while it takes up to an hour, 3 hours to respond to these individuals that are detained, not just here, but beyond in the rural area. I also want to thank the governor for sending more National Guard to this area. This is unprecedented times, and I really want to thank the leadership of Governor Abbott. I also wish, and I called upon the governor to ensure that we have open dialogue with the administration at the White House, because we also need to work together in tandem to ensure that all resources are properly assessed and distributed amongst our communities. I did touch base just now. I'm going to go ahead and just announce the next announcement. Let me just take a swig of water because I'm parched. I guess any questions up until now before I go on to the next
Can I use something in Spanish for the Telemundo Network?
Hola, sí,
¿Cuál es el último número que tienen los migrantes, que tienen de migrantes aquí y saben si van a llegar más?
So, lo siento, porque era 12,155 son los habitantes de aquí.
¿Saben si van a llegar más?
Sí, para allá.
Aproximadamente. ¿Sabe cómo están llegando al río? O sea, sabemos que están cruzando por México, pero sabemos por dónde, cuál es la travesía que ellos traen.
No. Where they're coming from, right?
Yeah.
Hay unos que ya estaban ahí en México casi por 2 años, hay otros que 1 mes, hay otros que llegaron cuando pasó el huracán o el earthquake y también cuando asesinaron al presidente. So, hay varios tiempos que ya están aquí los Haitians.
¿Que los van a transportar y a dónde los van a llevar? No saben todavía.
Security y no sé el plan, porque todavía no sé el plan del presidente Biden. Nunca me ha avisado el plan de dónde van a transportar estos civiles.
¿Usted personalmente ha tenido comunicación con el gobierno federal? Si van a reanudar los vuelos a Haití para regresar?
In English, it is my understanding that there are going to be outbound flights, but it is also my understanding that there's been flights canceled. So I don't know which side to really believe at this point.
Ok, última pregunta. ¿Han llegado refuerzos de la patrulla fronteriza y otras agencias? ¿Han llegado refuerzos de la patrulla fronteriza, más refuerzos de Border Patrol?
There's been more resources coming to the Del Rio area. Can you tell me the word? Yes, so I'm working with 2 agencies simultaneously while I'm trying to do this. But are there any other questions beforehand so I can get on to the next topic?
Mayor, over the last years, and especially the last months, the border is such a political issue. Many Americans believe build a wall, and many say, well, build a bridge and let people come over. How important is it that Americans come together to help solve this issue?
It is extremely important. I believe that this is the consequence of inaction. Immigration has been a hot topic for the past 20 years in recent history, and our elected officials in Washington D.C. need to have that conversation, that challenging conversation, to really digest and reform the naturalization process. This is a failed policy for the American people. This is a failed process for those seeking an opportunity in the United States. And that conversation, as challenging as it is, needs to happen because this is the consequence of that inaction.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next topic is due to the circumstances that's happening, and this is one of the reasons why we're having media staged out here, is for the safety of everybody around. I do want to be transparent as possible. I want to make sure that you understand that the dynamics of what's happening down there is changing almost every minute now. The people are getting very agitated and frustrated. The wait time to get detained is upwards of 7 to 15 days. That was maybe Wednesday when we had a population of, in the morning when I got that information, what did I say, 5,600 in the morning? Because at the end of the day we ended with 8,000. So as you can see, trying to make sure I'm on. As you can see or understand, 7 to 15 days is going to make a lot of people agitated. Now we have 12,155 people as of just now, and so the agitation is going to increase. That leads to a lot of security threats, and it leads to the potential of a stampede, people running over each other. It leads to an infrastructure threat as far as the safety and integrity of the bridge itself. It just creates a lot of variables. So with that being said, it's my understanding that Governor Abbott yesterday attempted to close down the port of entries on the state border, along the Texas border, in an attempt to provide some security measures for the assets that belong to municipalities or the state or etc. Unfortunately, the Department of Homeland Security denied those requests, and that is a big slap in the face, because what we're trying to do in real time is protect our communities locally. And so it is in collaboration with the county judge, local law enforcement, state enforcement, that I am going to be declaring a state of emergency locally to ensure that I have access to state resources and other resources to ensure that the safety and health of my community and those utilizing the bridge are not impeded upon. I never thought in my lifetime, and I'm sure everybody here in our lifetimes would be experiencing something like this in this magnitude, but this needs to be done. I was elected to protect the community of Del Rio, Texas, and its assets, and that is my responsibility. And I will challenge administration to the best of my capabilities to ensure that our message is loud and clear. We need to figure out the next plan of action. Before I read the declaration, I'll ask some more questions regarding the topic.
What exactly does your declaration do?
I am going to be directing city staff to close our city toll bridges of outbound traffic from the United States into Mexico.
So people won't be able to
Correct.
cross, but will people be able to cross this way?
We are going to control the ingress and egress of the international bridge with this declaration.
And what does that mean?
That means that we're not going to have anybody crossing on the bridge.
From our side.
So I'm going to be controlling the ingress and egress of the bridge by closing down access to the outbound traffic, and if inbound traffic is still on the bridge, they're going to be told to go back outbound.
Can you say that in Spanish? Just
Voy a cerrar temporalmente la plaza del toll aquí en el puente porque es propiedad de la ciudad.
¿Por cuánto tiempo?
Until it needs to be done.
Mayor Lozano, talk about the purpose for that, because we know they're crossing on the river down.
The purpose for that, and I know that some questions yesterday when the governor was trying to close, there was no really understanding the in-depth information. There is intelligence that there are dire threats to the bridge, our assets. There is data. I can't confirm or deny exactly what's been told. Some of it's rumor, some of it hasn't been vetted. But what I can tell you is that I cannot risk the population being on top of a bridge if there's a potential for a stampede. I cannot have people on top of the bridge if there's a potential for a bomb, because we don't know who's coming in and out on the river. That's just one variable. I need to protect the employees of the city of Del Rio, Texas, and I need to protect the assets of Del Rio, Texas, in the event that these individuals get beyond frustrated and just overtake this fence. This fence can easily be toppled with that many people trying to cross over.
And who's controlling that operation on the ground?
As far as
Law enforcement. We know Border Patrol is stretched there.
down there.
Yeah.
So behind me you have various agencies, including we have DPS, National Guard, and Border Patrol. And I believe some customs officers may have been deployed as of late. As you're all aware, the ports, the security checkpoints in Uvalde, Eagle Pass, I know Comstock, they've been closed, and they're moving all Border Patrol resources to this community.
Do you have the authority? I mean, have y'all obviously consulted with people, but like, do y'all have the authority to take these drastic measures?
I have the authority to control assets and to protect the city of Del Rio's assets. Yes, ma'am, I do.
And assets being personnel?
The personnel and the toll bridge itself.
So you're removing them off
Correct.
of it, essentially. Can you go back, Mayor, to what you're saying? People are agitated. You need to really describe what you're talking
They're
about.
angry.
Are people
There's
fighting
people
them?
having babies down there. There's people collapsing out of the heat. There's people, I mean, there's babies in diapers. They haven't bathed. There's a whole sub-economy of people purchasing things. You have, I mean, people are just getting aggressive. If you guys are down there, they peek up and you can feel the desperation of these individuals. They're getting aggressive, rightfully so. They've been in the heat day after day after day, and it's something that it's very challenging to describe in words, but it's extremely chaotic.
Why do you think this happened, and what do you think the solution is?
The solution is, again, we need action in Congress. We need our governor and our president to have this open dialogue, not just with the state of Texas, but all border states. We need to have a plan of action. This has never before seen, but you can't sit here and tell me that I didn't foreshadow the potential threat that's going to happen, and now it's happening in real time. So I think the administration, I think Department of Homeland Security needs to trust the best persons from the border, which is elected officials, including mayors and judges, on how to properly assess the threats and what resources we can use in tandem to prevent something like this from happening in the future.
Mayor, can you just speak, sir, to people out there who might say you're being a little dramatic, that, you know, people aren't going to be flooded, like what you're kind of describing?
You don't think 1,000 people is dramatic?
I'm not saying anything.
No. So like my frustration and if those of you that think that this is a dramatic measure, this is a dramatic time. This is drastic. This is unprecedented, and I feel like any mayor along the border would be doing something similar. This is not out of, you have to respond the threat with the same kind of elevation. As security forces, you have to assess the situation. You're trying to de-escalate, but you're also trying to control the assets and protect the assets. So I think this is a perfect response to it. And if I have the governor's blessing, by all means.
And you said you spoke with him, right?
I did, yes, ma'am.
Mayor Lozano, what are you hearing about the next few days? I mean,
Say that again.
what are you hearing about the next few days? Do you anticipate thousands more?
We do. The Monday we had 2,000, and we heard that that there was a 20,000 caravan. Is that what you guys have heard on Monday? So now we have 12,000, so maybe another 8,000 more.
So who's bringing these people? Is it cartel?
That's a great question. We're hearing reports that there's unauthorized bus systems transporting individuals to the border states. We're hearing that Haitians are now bypassing the Mexican visa, I guess, that they were supposed to be getting to stay in country, because if the federal agents find out that they have a Mexican visa, they go back to Mexico. So they're bypassing that. It's my understanding that the cartels were charging, and this is actually a free way to come in. There's multiple variables that are potentially indicating this influx. And I know I was asked previously, like, well, why now? Why just Haitians? And there's multiple layers. You have the earthquake, and this is the thing, is that every country has different asylum and entitlements and different things. So this is the problem when you have multinationals coming across the border unlawfully.
What do you say to those who live hundreds, if not 1,000 miles away from the border, who don't think this will affect them?
No, it will affect them. I mean, these individuals have a destination they're going to, so March, when I was interviewing and talking to migrants, the hot places have been were Seattle, Boston, Denver, Miami, Houston. Then in about maybe May, I heard Nashville, San Francisco, I think I want to say Chicago. Oh, wait a second. New York, Boston, East Coast municipalities. And so my thing is that I'm a mayor, and if you have an influx of individuals coming in, that's going to use your resources. So those of you living up north, it's or west, wherever outside the border, it's affecting your communities as well, especially elected officials. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the next thing. If this will give them another 10 minutes by the time I finish reading.
When does the bridge close?
So again, I'm going to set the next moment. So the next thing I'm going to do, any questions before the next situation happens? No? All right. Can I have some? Yeah. All right, see you guys. Yeah, so, before I begin, as you mentioned or asked, dire circumstances require dire responses, and I'm just doing what I need to do to protect my community and the assets of the city of Del Rio, Texas. I did speak with the governor before we started speaking here, and so he is willing and ready to provide additional resources, including TxDOT resources, DPS resources, and the like. And we're going to be working in tandem with our county officials as well to ensure that those assets are accurately and adequately presented and fortified along the port. So I did touch base on what I was going to be doing next. I'm doing the Emergency Local Disaster Declaration in the city of Del Rio, Texas. A declaration ordered by the mayor of the city of Del Rio declaring an emergency and disaster to assist with securing the international border in the city due to the ongoing immigration influx and associated issues in the city of Del Rio, Texas. Whereas securing the international border is important to the city to preserve the public health and safety of its residents. Whereas in 2021 alone, the governor of Texas has deployed thousands of troopers from the Texas Department of Public Safety and hundreds of soldiers from the Texas National Guard to provide assistance with controlling and securing the border. Whereas beginning on or about September 10th, 2021, there have been thousands of migrants crossing the border and habituating on city property based in the backlog of immigration processing by U.S. Border Patrol. And there are likely thousands more who are traveling to Del Rio through Mexico in the coming days and weeks. Whereas there are significant health and safety issues to the resident of Del Rio and the migrants with the influx of migrants on city property, whereas there are numerous reports of farmers, ranchers, and other Texans suffering property damage as a result of the increase in unlawful crossings, including damage to crops, livestock, ranch fences, and homes in Valverde County and the city of Del Rio. And whereas the public health and safety of the residents of the city of Del Rio under an imminent threat of disaster from an elevated risk of exposure to unknown variants of COVID-19 resulting from the human trafficking occurring on our border with Mexico, the limited resources of the city cannot adequately furnish the necessary procedures and facilities set forth by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention for the testing and quarantining of thousands of immigrants who may be infected with unknown variants of COVID-19 or other infectious diseases that residents have not been vaccinated for. Whereas the legislature has, in section 418.0041, defined a disaster as the occurrence or imminent threat of widespread or severe damage, injury, or loss of life or property resulting from any natural or man-made cause. Whereas under Texas law, declaring a disaster allows the use of all available state and local resources needed to manage the situation, activates the State Emergency Management Plan, and empowers the Texas Division of Emergency Management to reassign and fully utilize appropriate personnel where they are needed most. And whereas declaring a disaster also allows the state of Texas and the city of Del Rio to request federal funding for costs related to the disaster and begin accounting for costs that can be made part of a request, and the mayor finds it is in the best interest of its citizens to declare a local disaster to account for costs and has determined the extraordinary measures must be taken to ensure the protection of the health, safety, and welfare of city residents due to migrant influx. And whereas pursuant to the Texas Disaster Act of 1975, the mayor is designated as the Emergency Management Director of the City of Del Rio and may exercise the powers granted to the governor an appropriate local scale, and the City Council may also authorize the disaster and extensions of same. Whereas the City of Del Rio will work collaboratively with the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, Department of Homeland Security, Val Verde County, and the state of Texas to ensure that all appropriate and necessary measures are taken to manage and protect the residents of Del Rio and the migrant influx. Whereas by this declaration of disaster, the City of Del Rio does hereby declare all rules and regulations that may inhibit or prevent prompt response to this threat suspended for the duration of the incident. And whereas pursuant to the authority granted to the mayor under the Texas Declaration Act of 1975, the City of Del Rio does hereby authorize the use of all available resources of state and political subdivisions to assist in the city's response to the situation. Whereas Bruno Lozano, the mayor of the City of Del Rio, Texas, has determined that extraordinary and immediate measures must be taken to respond quickly to ensure and deter the influx of border crossings and devote additional city resources towards deterring the influx of migrant border crossings to protect our border community. Now, therefore, it is declared by the mayor of the City of Del Rio, Texas, Section 1, the recitals contained in the preamble are hereby found to be true, and such recitals are hereby made a part of this emergency declaration for all purposes and are adopted as part of the judgment and findings by the mayor. Section 2, that the mayor finds that a local state of disaster has been identified based on the migrant influx for the City of Del Rio pursuant to 418.108 of the Texas Government Code shall hereby declared, ordered, and authorized until September 24th pursuant to 418.108 of the Government Code. Section 3, pursuant to 418.108, the Government Code, this declaration of a local state of disaster shall be given prompt and general publicity and shall be filed promptly with the city secretary, including all publications necessary as required by law. Section 4, pursuant temporarily acquired by the war zone. Say that from quick. Any use of private property temporarily acquired by lease or other means, sites required for temporary housing units or emergency shelters subject to compensation requirements. Pursuant to Section 362.003 of the Texas Local Government Code, this local state of disaster is intended to authorize and does hereby declare that a state of civil emergency exists in the City of Del Rio, Texas, and request the assistance of additional law enforcement to uphold the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the city. And Section 7, pursuant to Section 433.005 of the Texas Government Code, this local state of disaster is intended to request and does hereby request that the Governor of Texas provide state forces to aid in controlling conditions in the city by assisting the city's law enforcement department in the enforcement of law and the preservation of sovereignty and territorial integrity of the city, as well as the assistance and cooperation of all appropriate federal administrative agencies for the preservation of city property. It is so ordered, authorized, and effective on the 17th day of September, 2021. We are now in a state of emergency regarding the migrant influx, and I'll take questions regarding this declaration.
I'm sorry to keep you.
No, you're fine.
There are people, there's children. We both know that these communities are what? There are people whose children are over at school right now, spouses that work on the other side. They're wanting to know, when does it close?
Now.
Now. So the bridge,
The bridge is ineffective in the process of closing.
for how long, do we know?
Until the administration can alleviate the threat to mass death, stampede, and everything that's going on behind me.
So it could be
And who knows
days.
how that long will take.
So now it's closing?
And it's closing now.
So what about the children who are here in school, live in Mexico?
The threat of something chaotic happening is too extreme to have children on the bridge to cross home.
How did they get home though?
They're going to have to find an alternate means through the City of Eagle Pass or other measures.
What do we? You may have mentioned this earlier, but what do we know about any COVID testing at all that's going on down there? Not even when they're put on, when 50 are put on each bus.
I know some of them are showing their vaccination cards, and when they show symptoms, I don't even think that if they show symptoms they go to the hospital immediately. I think it's a certain condition that they go. I can tell you that I can tell you that there was a family. She was giving birth or something like that, and then was rushed to local hospital. They may have moved her out, but tested positive, so they took up hospital space.
Do we know if anybody's down there is tested positive, and if they have, are they being separated from the others?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do we know if anybody down there has tested positive, or if they're showing symptoms, are they being separated?
I don't know. Nobody's being separated down there. No.
Mayor, en español solamente, el puente está cerrado.
Sí, el puente ya está cerrado. No, el puente no está cerrado. The toll booth,
¿Me puedes decir en
the
español?
city toll booths are closed.
¿Me
You
puedes
want to
decir?
translate for me, Michael? Any other questions?
Las casetas de pago de aquí del lado de Del Río, Texas, van a estar cerradas.
¿Me lo puedes decir? Las casetas de...
The toll booths are closed.
Las casetas de pago donde pagan aquí del lado americano van a estar cerradas.
¿Y hasta cuándo
So
van a
that's for
estar?
vehicles. Can people walk across or
Ahorita
no?
no sabemos.
The whole
The
thing's closed.
entire city has
Doctor Mayor, que hasta que del lado de México empiecen a
So inbound
disminuir
still gonna.
todas las
We're
masas
going
de
to
gente
control
que
the
están
ingress and
viniendo,
egress
esto
of the
lo va a estar
international bridge by making
hasta
sure
así que
that
ahorita
all
no sabemos cómo
outbound
durar días, no
is
sabemos.
to proceed, that we have his blessing, basically.
If,
That
Pre-
we're going to get resources.
if President Biden was here, what would you tell him?
I would tell him that this is an extreme measure and needs to be done, and we need action.
Could you repeat, sir, what the blessing is